An inexpensive, crumpled coupon lay in my hand, its faded ink promising $20 off a future purchase at Budget Mart. This was my special 30th birthday present. Around me, laughter echoed off the crystal chandeliers at the upscale rooftop venue my family picked for the occasion, where a glass of wine cost more than they valued my life. "Come on, see, don't take it so hard," my elder brother Liam chuckled, whiskey swirling in his glass. "We thought you could use a little help since you're always barely making it," he added. "They're convinced I'm merely scraping by." My mother, Vivian Monroe, gave me her trademark tight-lipped smile, the same one reserved for trivialities. "It's sensible, dear. You've always been careful with money," she said. My father, who's engrossed in his phone at the end of the table, Walter Monroe, a self-made real estate mogul and empire builder, barely glanced up. I was never worthy of his attention. "Be thankful," he muttered, continuing to text. "Liam went to great lengths to set up this dinner." Great lengths, I scoffed internally. Liam, the golden child, never exerted effort for anything. His role as vice president of Van Ban Capital was a gift of legacy, not merit. They perceived me as the struggling underachiever, without realizing their error. I inhaled deeply, burdened by the secret I had fiercely guarded for a decade. A vibration from my pocket disrupted my thoughts. I checked my phone, a notification read, "Acquisition confirmed. Van Ban Capital now belongs to Monroe Holdings." My grip tightened around the phone. Unbeknownst to them, I'd acquired Van Ban Capital, the very enterprise on which Liam's career thrived. Satisfaction surged through me. Years of dismissal and mockery were about to backfire. What they thought was an insult, a petty coupon, would become their nightmare. I hid my glee behind a composed expression. "Thanks, Liam," I stated evenly. "Very thoughtful." He flashed a grin, unaware. "Anything for my little sister," he said. Meanwhile, my sister Olivia leaned in, asking if I'd considered Liam's proposal to hook me up with an assistant job at Van Ban. I nearly laughed, an assistant to the company I now owned. Looking at my father, I anticipated he'd quash her idea, but he nodded approvingly. "You should take the opportunity, see," he advised. "It's high time you learned how the real world functions." The real world, I mused, suppressing my rising anger. I'd been dominating the real world for 10 years, piecing together an empire with precise investments. Yet, to them, I was the weakling, the failure, the charity case. I eyed the coupon and my unassuming family, basking in their carefree luxury. Their laughter would soon fade. Setting my glass down with care, I responded, "Actually, I won't need Liam's assistance." My mother frowned. "Sit down. See, we haven't gotten to dessert." "Some of us have commitments to tend to," I replied, adjusting my blazer. Liam, leaning back with a smirk, quipped, "Oh, another part-time stint at that little marketing firm, or is this about finding a real career?" Facing him slightly, I replied, "Oh, I'm serious, Liam." I pulled out a crisp $100 bill, placing it on the table, 10 times the coupon's worth. "For the tip," I remarked, meeting my father's eyes, "since you taught me always to pay my dues." With that, I exited, their laughter trailing behind me. Olivia's dismissive scoff followed. Drama queen. They hadn't yet witnessed true drama. Outside in the cold Manhattan air, I glanced at my phone. A message from Jacob, my business partner, confirmed our plan. All set. Press release goes live at 6 a.m. I smiled, knowing that next morning when Liam reached his office, he'd realize the truth. He no longer had won. I dialed Jacob. "Is it done?" was my only question. His voice assured me, "Congratulations, C. You're officially the majority shareholder of Van Ban Capital." Clutching the cheap plastic coupon, I couldn't help but see the irony. "Perfect," I whispered, ready to enact my plans. There was a time when the approval of my family was all I desired, but they underestimated who I would become. I spent years striving to prove myself, demonstrating my worth beyond their pity, but it was never sufficient. In my family, success was never earned. It was inherited. Liam, with no experience or qualifications, was handed a comparable role at Vanner Capital straight out of college. thanks to the privilege of his last name. Meanwhile, I graduated top of my class with a degree in finance, possessing the grades, skills, and everything they purported to value. But when I sought a position at Vannon from my father, he merely laughed. "You're not cut out for this world, see," dismissing me with a wave. Liam, lounging in the pristine living room, grinned as if it were a joke. "Don't take it personally, sis. Dad just doesn't want to see you struggle. You should be grateful." Grateful? I pleaded for a chance. I offered to start from the bottom and work my way up, but my father refused. "You'll embarrass yourself," he said, "and worse, you'll embarrass me." That was when I realized the truth. They never wanted me to succeed, for if I did, it would unravel the lie of their entire system. So I left and grabbed the first job I could as a low-level analyst at a small investment firm. No prestige, no connections, just my brain and an unyielding resolve. I worked longer hours, studied every market shift and financial trend, living in a cramped studio, driving a beat-up car, and wearing second-hand suits. My family sneered, labeling me as the failure. However, unbeknownst to them, every penny saved was invested. While Liam and Olivia squandered trust funds on luxury vacations and designer clothes, I acquired shares and assets, making moves they couldn't comprehend. Now, a decade later, the company forming their identities became mine, yet they remained oblivious. As I stood outside Van Baron Capital's headquarters, facing the once elusive glass tower, I knew today marked not just entering an office, but my empire. Jacob awaited me in the executive parking lot, replacing his usual easygoing demeanor with a serious tone. "They're already panicked," he said, handing me a sleek black folder. "Liam's been calling board members all morning, trying to discover who the new owner is." I smirked, knowing they were keeping silent, just as planned. To Liam, a private equity firm conducted the takeover. Walking through the rotating glass doors, my heels clicked on the marble floor, drawing attention from every receptionist, security guard, and employee. Most looked confused. Some recognized me as Liam's underestimated sister. Little did they know, by day's end, everything would change. I ascended directly to the executive floor, entering a tense boardroom. Liam, appearing as if he hadn't slept, looked disheveled, his typical arrogance shifting to fear. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded, slamming his hands on the table. I calmly set my folder down, relishing the tension. "You're about to find out," I replied, taking my seat at the head of the table. Liam laughed, a short, disbelieving chuckle that fell flat. "This is cute, see, really, but this isn't your playground. It's a billion-dollar corporation. Maybe if you accepted my offer yesterday, you'd be fetching coffee now instead of embarrassing yourself." The board members fidgeted uneasily, sensing the shift. I smiled, pulling the official acquisition papers from my folder, placing them on the table. "I'm not here for coffee, Liam," I stated, leaning forward. "I'm here to run the company." The room fell silent. Liam's complexion turned pale as he examined the documents, his hands trembling while flipping pages, breathing sharply. My father had always taught business was about power, and I held it all now. "See," his voice a mere whisper. "What did you do?" Leaning back, arms crossed, I replied, "I did what you never could. I earned it." His fingers were frozen in place as he gripped the acquisition documents, almost as if he could change the content through sheer force of will. "This can't be happening," he muttered, flipping through the pages with frantic urgency. "I can't believe it, Liam," I said firmly. "I own Van Baron Capital now." The boardroom was enveloped in silence, only disturbed by the clocks ticking on the far wall. Board members, both men and women who had loyally served my father and brother for years, seemed too shocked to voice a word. Liam's breath was uneven, his face was ashen. I observed as realization crept upon him, agonizing and slow. "I'm losing everything," he whispered, voice cracking, "where families see." I leaned back, legs crossed. "Funny how little that mattered when you were mocking me last night." Liam's jaw tightened. He turned desperately to the board, trying to recover his stance. "This must be a mistake. My father, your father," I interrupted, "has no authority left here." I drew from my folder the pivotal document, a signed contract restructuring Van Baren's leadership, and slid it across the table, tapping on the bold text, "Effective immediately, your underperformance review." Liam stared at the words, breath stilling in his throat, while the room was so silent you could hear the air conditioning's faint hum. He balled his hands into fists.
"You're joking," he said.
I smiled. Not at all. His eyes darted to the board members, panic rising in his voice. "You can't just let her do this. I've managed this company for years," I interjected, "and poorly." I turned my laptop screen to display the company's financial data. The East Coast division, your division, has been in a 40% deficit for 3 quarters consecutively. If not for Dad's clout, you'd have been out months back. Liam's face reddened, his jaw set hard. "Under my leadership," I continued, "the company will no longer cater to entitled executives. Prove your merit or be gone." A chair scraped loud as Liam pushed away from the table, trembling with rage. "You think you can just step in and take it all from me," he seethed. "You think you're better than me." I met his furious gaze calmly. "No, Liam," I said while adjusting my blazer. "I don't think I'm better, I know I am." His jaw muscles twitched, fists clenched tight at his sides. For a moment, I thought he might combust right there. But then his expression shifted, the fury in his eyes replaced by something else, a slow, creeping smile that unsettled me. Liam took a deep breath, adjusted his tie, and leaned against the table with forced ease. "You're smart, see," he conceded, shaking his head. "Smarter than I credited you for." He chuckled, rubbing his face with his hands. "But there's a catch." His gaze met mine, sharp and calculating. "You don't know everything." A chill ran cold down my spine. "What's that supposed to mean?" I demanded. Liam exhaled with mock dramatics, as though savoring the moment, then slowly pulled out his phone and laid it on the table, screen revealing an email inbox with a single unread message, titled, "Urgent. Ownership dispute at Vanner Capital." My heart lurched. Liam's grin broadened. "You really thought Dad would let you claim everything so easily?" I grabbed the phone, scanning the email, fingers tightening around it. Walter Monroe, our father, had initiated a legal contest against my acquisition. "Looks like Daddy has a few tricks up his sleeve," Liam murmured, "and he's summoning some potent favors." I remained expressionless despite my racing mind. This wasn't foreseen. My acquisition was clean, legally sound. But my father, Walter Monroe, was not just influential. He was relentless. If he was meddling with legal maneuvers, this was no longer merely about the corporation. It was war. I set the phone down gingerly, refusing Liam even a glimpse of doubt. "If you think I'm scared," I said icily, "you're wrong." Liam leaned in, eyes gleaming. "We'll see," he retorted. I tucked my folder under my arm and aimed for the door, but his voice stopped me cold. "Oh, and see," I paused. "You might want to check your emails, too." A creeping dread slithered up my spine. Pulling out my phone revealed a new message from Walter Monroe. Subject: "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." The blood drained from my face. As I sat at my office desk, the city's skyline sprawling beyond the large windows, a profound anticipation gripped me instead of the expected regret or fear. It was sparked by my father, Walter Monroe's, unintended declaration of war, a conflict I was fully prepared to conclude. Notably, Walter Monroe wasn't one to make idle threats. With his vast empire built by silencing opposition, I was now his new adversary. His email, a declaration that I'd committed the life's biggest blunder, sealed this. Despite the tension gnawing at me, I remained calm, breathing deeply as I reviewed the email. The message was a concoction of legalese falsely accusing me of acquiring assets using insider information. Lies, all of it. I had been methodical, adhering strictly to legal protocols. Truth, unfortunately, was often overrun by might in the world of business, a realm where my father flourished for decades. The real battle lay ahead, a battle I was prepared and for. The emergency board meeting commenced 40 minutes later. The room buzzed with an ambient tension. At the table's far end sat Liam, smugness radiating through his crossed arms. He seemed convinced of his impending victory. At the table's forefront, I stood poised, my fingers lightly poised on the surface. Years of effort ushered me to this pivotal point, to prove I belonged. My voice resonated firmly, advocating my acquisition's legality and positive leadership, branding the opposition's maneuvers as desperate clutches for residual power. Unsettled, the board members shifted, averting eye contact. My father's lawyer, Richard Vaugh, cleared his throat, interrupting the silence. "Miss Monroe, there's an issue," he cautiously stated, sliding a document towards me. The ominous paper, I realized upon reading it, bore my name. A forged contract, claiming I transferred shares to my father's holding firm weeks prior. This wasn't mere legal rebuke, but a trap, a perfect, seamless deception. Amidst the growing realization, I heard Liam's chuckle, a background noise against my determination. My gaze, sharp, held steady. "This is fake," I asserted. "Then you'll prove that in court," Richard replied, unfazed. The courts could encroach upon years which would bring irreversible damage. Ownership seized, my power displaced, and Liam reinstated as CEO. My father orchestrated his play impeccably, but my strategy was equally crafted. Keeping my voice steady, I announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, my father's overreached if he thinks history is his to rewrite." Liam snickered, stating, "Or maybe he just outplayed you." I allowed myself a knowing smile and replied, "Funny you'd say that, Liam," as I revealed my own document from my folder. I passed it to Richard, whose confidence waned visibly. Leaning in to glimpse what had unsettled Vaughn, Liam inquired, "What is that?" in a brittle voice. Richard, hesitantly, identified it. A dissolution agreement. My smile widened. A setup rendered futile. Addressing the board, I elaborated. 3 days ago, I dissolved Monroe Holdings, and every asset is now beyond my father's reach. Panic creased Liam's face, and he erupted. "You what?" My moment unfolded. My father presumed I'd pilot Van Burr Capital beneath Monroe Holdings. What he overlooked was that Monroe Holdings no longer existed. I legally dismantled it, repositioning its wealth beyond his grasp. Walter's purported dominion vanished. Without catching breath, Liam blustered. "You think this is over?" I raised my hand to quell him, dialed a contact, and allowed the room to hear. 2 rings and my father's voice cut through. "What the hell have you done?" Silence pervaded, thick with disbelief. Liam's confidence dissolved. Triumphantly settled back in my chair, I softly declared, "Just as you taught me, Dad. I won." The room was submerged in silence, leaving Liam immobilized, defeated. Has this encounter marked the pinnacle of my retribution, or is my father planning his count move? Comment if you're intrigued to discover what unfolds next. The board members, once loyal to my father, now fidgeted in their seats, realizing the error of their allegiance. From the speakerphone, Walter Monroe's voice was trembling with anger. "Callie, what on earth have you done?" he exclaimed. I leaned forward, relishing the moment. "I did what you always advised, Dad. I took control." My words carried a weight that, for the first time, rendered my father silent, the man who had always underestimated and belittled me. Liam, however, was not silent. "This is a bluff," he spat out, struggling to maintain his grip, his hands clutching the table, his lifeline. "There's no way you—" "I did." I cut him off, addressing the board while sliding a document across the table. "Van Buren Capital is no longer under Monroe Holdings," I declared, clear and firm. "As the majority shareholder, my first executive decision is to fire you, Liam." The room erupted. Liam pushed his chair back violently, sending a glass of water flying. "You can't." "I already did," I interrupted, my tone unyielding. I turned to the board, who sat too shocked to contend. "If there are any objections, speak now, but let's be honest." I gestured to the financial reports displayed. The company was sinking under him, with full knowledge. "You ignored it because my father shielded him." Silence resonated as everyone confronted the undeniable truth. Liam's fury was palpable, his face flushed red, his fists clenched. For a brief moment, I feared he might completely lose composure. But before he could react, the conference room doors swung open, and two security officers entered. "Mr. Liam Monroe," one announced, "we need you to accompany us." Panic washed over Liam. "What?" he muttered, fear in his eyes. My smile was slow and satisfied. "Oh, didn't I mention?" I said almost casually. "I submitted a full financial audit of Van Buren to the Securities and Exchange Commission before this meeting." The color drained from Liam's face. "You," he stammered. I shrugged. "Turns out, someone's been embezzling funds for personal use, and after my takeover, the numbers didn't add up." Liam turned to the speakerphone, looking desperate. "Dad will sort this out," he mumbled to himself. In synchronization, Walter's voice came through cold and detached. "I'm sorry, Liam." Shocked, Liam looked at the phone, his mouth slightly open. Walter continued, "I told you to be careful. You weren't. Now face the consequences." Liam appeared as if he had been struck. "Dad, please," he pleaded, but the line abruptly went silent. Security moved in, taking Liam by the arms. He struggled, but it was futile. "Callie," he hissed, voice trembling with rage, "you think you've won. It isn't over." I stepped closer, whispering so only he could hear. "Oh, Liam," I said softly, "it was over the moment you gave me that discount coupon." His face contorted with hatred before he was removed from the room. As the door shut, a burden lifted from me. For the first time, I wasn't grappling for recognition. I was seen. The board looked at me expectantly. I exhaled, smoothing my blazer. "Now that we've cleared the decks," I stated evenly, "let's discuss the future." They adjusted in their seats, sensing the power shift. I was no longer the overlooked daughter, the underestimated outsider. I was in command, and they finally acknowledged it. Later, back at my penthouse, not the modest apartment my family presumed I lived in, I was greeted by Jacob holding a champagne bottle. "Well," he remarked, pouring me a glass, "you did it." I accepted the glass, meeting his gaze. "No," I corrected, "I won." Jacob smiled, clinking his glass to mine. "To new beginnings." I savored a sip, feeling the culmination of my efforts settle in. Liam was out, my father was impotent, and I was unquestionably in charge. The girl they once mocked now held their destinies, and the best part? I wasn't finished. This was just the beginning. More than revenge, it was about rewriting the rules. And I had just started. Does Callie's triumph meet your expectations? Or is there more to uncover? Comment if you'd like a bonus epilogue, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more dramatic tales of vindication.